Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us for the University of Maryland's College Access Central. My name is Elena Jackson, and I'm an admissions counselor in the Office of Undergraduate Admissions. Today, I'll be presenting on the application process. Let's go ahead and get started. All right, so just to give you a brief overview of this presentation, the purpose is to give you insight on what goes into an application process and how exactly schools view an application and why. Keep in mind that every school is a little bit different, and the details I share will only be applicable to the University of Maryland. The only way to be 100% sure on any aspect of an application is to check with your counselor or to check with the school directly. Today, we'll just be going over the types of applications as well as requirements, what the University of Maryland requires and looks for when evaluating their class, and we'll get a chance to look at 3 different applicants. So let's start with the type of application. There are multi-institutional applications and individual institution applications. There's a common application which has about 750 institutions that are a part of it, and it was founded to provide access to allow students to apply to multiple institutions with just one single application form. The Coalition is a newer application form with over 80 institutions on the platform, and it was founded on Access. And it actually requires that school meet certain criteria for them to be a part of the Coalition. For individual institution applications, there are different requirements and differ from school to school. Some highly selective schools will have their separate applications, such as Georgetown, and some schools will just require their separate applications, such as Towson. When looking up schools, make sure you know which school is on which platform or which is on their own, and some schools may even be on 2 separate platforms. Just to talk a little bit more about the Coalition, there are these different sections: the Virtual Locker, Collaboration Space, and the Application Portal. The Virtual Locker has the ability for you to add your personal information that will be used for any school. You can attach your resume and directly request your letters of recommendation. The Collaboration Space has free testing guides as well as college searches and other great tools that are already open for you to use. Application Portal is where you will apply to an institution. If you do not request your documents through Coalition, this is where you can track your documents and application status. It will also give you deadlines as well as essay prompts and requirements for each individual institution. Coalition is set up to automatically waive your application fee if you answer questions that apply to you. An example of these questions are: do you receive school-sponsored lunch? And if you respond yes to this, you will automatically qualify for a fee waiver, and it will automatically apply it at the end of the application right before you hit submit. So let's talk about the different components of an application. As you can see already on this slide, there are a ton of things that go into a college application. Definitely make sure you're doing your research, because some schools may not require all of these things, but most schools will require most of the things that are on this slide right here. So let's start with the application form and fee. Make sure you know where your school requires their documents and how they want them. There's official test scores versus non-official test scores. There's different types of letter of recommendation and how many they want, subject tests, whether they want a resume, and also any additional materials the school may require from you. When we talk about application fees, like I said, Coalition will automatically waive your fee if you're applicable, and some schools will give you a waiver if you just ask them for it. Some have alumni programs that allow you to waive your fee, and national merit finalists can get their fee waived through us. So we talk about high school transcripts. They're self-reported versus official high school transcripts. In the Coalition and Common App, there's a section for you to report all of your grades and courses you've taken. Some schools will actually use this part to evaluate you. However, some schools, including the University of Maryland, will need your official high school transcript, which comes from your high school's registrar's office. A lot of students ask us about their senior year grades and if we'll look at them. If a school has an October, November, or December 1st deadline, they will not be looking at your senior year grades, but will see what courses you are signed up for. Schools, however, could hold your decision until your senior year grades are available, and if you apply with a January deadline, schools will most likely look at your first semester of grades. Let's talk a little bit about test scores. There's test optional versus self-reported test versus a school that requires you send your test scores. Test optional means that you are not required to submit a test score when applying to a school. However, some schools have differing meanings of optional. So it may be a requirement for certain majors or for the ability to earn merit scholarships. It's always best that you check with the school and find out their policy on test optional. For self-reported, some schools will require a test, but they will allow you to self-report the scores. Some will also allow you to report that you are in the process of taking another exam and will let you submit that score later. For required, For an application to be completed and reviewed, an applicant must submit an official test score. So when you see that a school requires the test scores, know that you must have them in by their deadline. Test scores do not come from your high school. They come from the SAT, so that's from the College Board, or the ACT, that's the ACT organization. Test scores must be in at the time of application. So for example, the University of Maryland College Park has an early action deadline of November 1st. So that means that you have to have all your documents in by November 1st, including your test scores. So if there's a November 7th test date that you have signed up for, that's after our November 1st deadline, and you cannot submit those along with your application by November 1st. So there are different types of tests, the SAT and the ACT. So the SAT is completed through the College Board, and there are two sections in a writing section. The Math and English section, there's a maximum score of 1,600 with a chance to get an 800 on each section. Some of the set test dates so far are August 29th, September 26th, October 3rd, November 7th, December 5th, and March 13th. Keep in mind that both ACT and SAT have announced that they will add more dates with the result of the COVID cancellations. The ACT is completed through the ACT organizations, and there are 4 sections: Math, English, Science, Reading, and a writing section with a maximum score of 36. With the ACT, you have the ability to take individual sections again and not retake the entire exam. Some test dates are September 12th, October 24th, December 12th, February 6th, and April 17th. So with super scoring, most colleges will super score, but it's always good to ask. Super score just means we'll take the highest score of each individual section if you took the exam more than once. So as an example, let's say first time you take the SAT, you get a 500 on reading and a 600 on math, and the second time you get a 600 on reading and a 550 on math. Your super score would be a 1200 with your highest sitting score being an 1150. Keep in mind though, we cannot super score across tests. So we cannot super score if you've taken the ACT and SAT once. We can't super score those two scores together. But there are also subject tests in the SAT too. Some competitive schools will ask or require subject tests, but most schools do not ask for them and they will not use them. Some testing resources that are available for students to use are Khan Academy, which is an online platform that students are able to get some testing prep from. Also through the Coalition website, there's testing resources, and there's also SAT prep courses that are available to students, but these usually come at an additional cost. So when it comes to the essay, most schools will require at least one. Both the Coalition and Common App give you the ability to write an open topic essays, and the same essays can be used for both. Individual school applications may ask you to write on a specific essay topic, so make sure you're doing your research about the essay for each school. The point of the essay is just to see how well you write and to tell us something about you. Make sure it's proofread, however, make sure it's still in your own voice, so don't over-edit this essay that you're writing, and try to avoid common themes and make it extremely unique to you. There is also supplemental essays, so some competitive schools will have additional essays you will have to write, and they will give you prompts, and amount of essays and lengths can vary from school to school. For example, Johns Hopkins has one 500-word essay, and Stanford has 3 100 to 250-word essays. So for short answer questions, these are similar to supplemental questions as they are not open-ended and usually 50 words or less, and they're meant to get to know you. One of our favorite ones from the University of Maryland is, what was your favorite thing about last Thursday? What I love most about this is it's so interesting to see how different a Thursday, a random Thursday, can be for each individual student. Let's talk about the letters of recommendation, as there are 3 types. You have the counselor, teacher, and any additional recommender such as a coach, pastor, or mentor. Some schools will require both a teacher letter and a counselor letter. Some schools may only want the counselor letter, and some will actually have a cap on how many you can submit to them. It's always important to research and ask these things early. The counselor letter usually tells us about your school if we're not already familiar, and any larger difficulties or things outside the classroom we should know about. The teacher letter is supposed to tell us what kind of student you are, and it has to come from someone that has actually taught you, and they have to be a teacher at your high school, and preferably in a core subject such as math, English, science, and social studies. There's also additional letters, which are great letters to speak on your involvement outside of school. It's important that you find out if schools require them and how to submit them if they are not a part of the school system. We're just going to talk a little bit about the activity list or resume. This is your time to talk about everything you did outside the classroom. Schools do not care if these are done in the school environment or in the world. Some common things we see are jobs, taking care of family members, or even just volunteering in the community. So let's talk about the FAFSA, which is the free application for federal student aid. Some schools will read students need blind and some will read need aware. So need blind just means that they do not take finances to account, and need aware means they take your finances into consideration when making a decision. When it comes to applying to a major, some schools will be major blind, or some schools you have to apply to a particular school within the university. So major blind just means that they do not use the major into consideration when it comes to making a decision on your application. It's always best to check with the school if you know you want to be in the particular majors, and some schools will not even allow you to start your major until you are already admitted to the university. Let's talk about the University of Maryland's application checklist. So first we have the application form. Keep in mind that we are on the coalition and it usually opens the first week of August. There's an application fee of $75, and again, this can be waived through coalition. If you're answering the questions or ask if you were qualified for a fee waiver and it says that you don't, you can always email us just to check and make sure. We also require your official high school transcripts, so your freshman through junior year grades, and they must come from your school. We do not take the self-reported section that is on the coalition. Also require 2 letters of recommendation, one from your counselor and one from your teacher. However, we do not have a cap on the amount of letters of recommendation you can send us. So if you have any additional recommenders you want to send a letter of recommendation, feel free to send that over to us. We also do require your official test scores. So they must be sent from the testing agency, so from the College Board or the ACT organization. Also, if English is not your native language and you did not complete 4 years of high school in the United States, we do require the official TOEFL or IELTS exam in order for your application to be reviewed. We also have an activity list or resume. We have no preference and it's not required, but we highly recommend that you fill one of these out. Next is just the essay. We have 1 essay, and again, that last prompt is just to write about whatever you want, and we do have a few short answer questions. We do review major blind, however, we cannot guarantee entry into certain limited enrollment programs such as computer science, business, and biological sciences. For the University of Maryland, we do a holistic review, which means we take so many different things into factor when it comes to making a decision on certain applications. So holistic just means that we are looking at so many different things. It's not just GPA and it's not just test scores. As you can see from this list, many of these things you cannot control, but some things you can, such as an essay. The University of Maryland gets 32,000 applications every year for a fall class of 4,500. For a fall profile, the average weighted GPA was a 4.33. The middle 50% for our SAT was a 1330 to a 1490, and a 30 to a 33 for the ACT. Keep in mind this is only our middle 50, so 25% of our class fell below these stats and 25% were above these stats. We are around 70% in-state, and there's no advantage or disadvantage to being from the state, and we do not read by county. Also, when you look at this list, you'll see that there's so many different things, but because we are an academic institution, test scores and grades will definitely be more important. And we also do a committee review. So this just means that multiple people are going to be looking at your application when you submit it to us, and we'll make one big decision on an individual's applications. We do not have a certain quota per county. We hear that all the time, that people think that we do. We do not. And we also read randomly, and we use the same criteria for every single person that we read. So now we'll go into the different application deadlines. There's early decision, regular decision, early action, and ruling. So early decision is a binding contract. So definitely keep in mind, if you're applying an early decision to a certain school, it means that if you are admitted, you are going to that school regardless of whether they give you any scholarships or any financial aid. So early decision is a really, really big decision. So definitely make sure you're doing your research before you decide to apply by an early decision deadline. So there's also restrictive early action. Some Ivy League schools allow you to only apply to one school early action. This is not binding, but it's a very rare deadline you would see. So early action is a non-binding deadline. Some schools will have some sort of incentive for applying by early action, such as consideration for honors programs, scholarships, and giving you a slightly higher chance of being admitted. The University of Maryland is one of these schools that has an early action deadline. And again, like I said, it will consider you for any of our special programs, such as our living and learning programs, any scholarships. And we do admit about 90% of our class from this first deadline. So please, 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 if you're interested in coming to the University of Maryland, we highly recommend that you apply by November 1st. So for the regular deadline, these deadlines are usually in January and decisions come out in March. It's non-binding, but it may be harder to get in and there's no incentive. So you won't be considered for any special programs, no scholarships. It's just simply based on admission. So for the rolling deadline, this is no fixed deadline, and some schools will return applications within a time period of 4 weeks. There may be an incentive to apply earlier, and there's usually more space in the beginning of rolling deadlines. All right, so let's talk about completing your application. So make sure you're checking your application status as well as documents. Ultimately, it's the student's responsibility to make sure everything is in. Things happen all the time, and documents get lost all the time. So please don't wait until the last second to go ahead and check. There's so many ways you can check the documents to make sure they're in on time, such as the Coalition Tracker. You can check through Naviance or the Common App, or you can even call the school directly. Keep in mind that some schools may not reach out to you to let you know you are missing something. So definitely it's important that you reach out to them and try to figure out if the school will reach out to you. So definitely do your research with these schools and see if they reach out to you and see if they don't. That way you know whether you should be calling or sending emails to make sure all your documents are in. If you have any important updates, great. Go ahead and send that over to us. We love seeing important updates from our students. Some of these updates we get from students are mid-year grades or any new accomplishments. It may not help the decision, but it definitely won't hurt. So definitely if you have any important updates, please send those over to any school you're applying to. Another important thing is to make sure you're checking your email. Most decisions will be made available first online. UND's decisions are made available online by the end of January. And the last thing, which I know is the hardest thing for everyone to do, including myself, is to just go ahead and relax. You can relax like our good friend here in this picture, laying on his backpack in the grass. He's having a great time. He finished his application. He called every single school. He knew all his documents are in our time. So he's just having a great summer now. So definitely just make sure you enjoy your senior year. This can be kind of a stressful time when it comes to applying to different schools, but once you finish and you know that all your documents are in, that's your time to relax and go ahead and finish out high school. You know all those fun things that seniors do. So let's talk about financing your education. So again, there's need-based financial aid or merit-based scholarships. Typically the FAFSA becomes available on October 1st. Definitely we recommend submitting as soon as possible and definitely by priority. As you can see, University of Maryland's priority FAFSA deadline is January 1st, and our school code is 002103, and that's also right here on the screen. Keep in mind with financial aid, they do not look at your test scores, they don't look at your GPA, they don't look at your involvement, simply that you were admitted, and they look at your financial status. Merit-based scholarships do not look at your finances either. Usually the top 25% of our admitted students will be awarded a merit-based scholarships. Again, this may be different at every school. This is only for University of Maryland, so definitely make sure you're checking with other schools with their merit scholarships. Merit scholarships are a discount on tuition and an incentive for you to come. Some schools, such as Ivy Leagues, do not offer merit aid, and some have separate applications that they require to be considered for merit-based scholarships. The University of Maryland does not. We do not have a separate application. For students to be considered for merit-based scholarships, they must apply by our November 1st deadline. Let's talk about the types of decisions. So you relax, you submit your application, you check with the schools, and now you get an email that your decision is ready. So let's take a look and see what these different decisions might be. So there's fall, spring, waitlisted, and denied. So fall, congratulations, you're admitted to the fall incoming class. Spring just means you're spring admit. There's options to do a gap semester, so this means you would start in January. You can go to community college or attend somewhere else and start in the beginning. And some schools do offer fall programs. So University of Maryland offers a program called Freshman Connection, which allows students to live on campus their first semester, so that fall semester before they're fully admitted in the spring. The only difference is that they have to take courses after a certain time period throughout the day, so at off-peak hours. But other than that, they're still a student who is living on our campus. So waitlisted means you are not an offered admission, but you have a spot on the waiting list if some students decide not to come and there is no space. If you applied early action or early decision, a school could defer you to the next round if they want to see their entire applicant pool or if they want to see your fall grades. And denied, unfortunately, means you were not admitted to the university. However, there are always opportunities to transfer into that university if it is truly your dream school. So if you get that denied decision, I know it's really sad and really like scary to kind of get a decision like that. Do you know that that's not the end of the road for you with that school if it really is your dream school? So now we're going to go over some different types of applicants. So these are three different applicants. We have student A, student B, student C. Wonderful names, right? So I'm just going to go over these different applicants. This is not how a typical review would go at all. We do not compare students side by side like this. And not all the details are here. There are additional details that are qualitative and quantitative that we consider in our review process. And of course, we have those 26 different factors like I showed earlier that we do consider when reviewing every single student. Okay, so let's start with student A. 4.2 GPA, 1450 SAT. They're the captain of the Science Olympiad team. They have leadership in track and cross country and several other extracurricular activities. Student B has a 3.9 GPA, a 28 ACT, which converts to a 1340 SAT. Keep in mind, this is just for you all to see, because I have 3 different SAT scores and 1 ACT scores. When we look at ACT scores, we don't convert them to SAT, but this is just for you all to get an idea of what their score was. They had 2 C's freshman year. They're a 2-sport athlete, a captain, and a manager. They're involved in 2 clubs and a seasonal employee at a local establishment, and they have a lot of community service hours. Student C has a 4.15 GPA, 1390 SAT, 2 C's their junior year. They're in National Honor Society. They were on cross country team, and they joined 1 club during their junior year. So now that you've seen the different students and like kind of taken it all in, I'll give you the decisions that we had for each student. So the first student A was admitted to fall. So they were also admitted to one of our living and learning programs, which are just special programs for students to be a part of. Some of these include honors, scholars, or our first year innovative research or FIRE program, where students have the opportunity to complete a research project their first year, which is awesome for those students. They also did receive a merit-based scholarship, and they were admitted directly to their limited enrollment program. So like I said, some of those are computer science, business, biological sciences, and so on. Student B was admitted to our spring semester, and they completed Freshman Connection. So they still got to live on campus their fall semester and still take classes. They just had to take it off-peak hours. They were still a very strong student that we wanted at UMD, and they still had the opportunity to graduate in 4 years. So even though they were admitted to the spring and had to technically start a semester late, they came in through Freshman Connection and got everything done within 4 years. Student C was unfortunately denied, but they do have transfer opportunities. Like I said, getting a denial decision is not the end of the road for you if that school is really your dream school. After completing at least a full-time semester, so 12 to 15 college credit hours at an accredited institution that's in or out of state, this student can apply to be a transfer student. Most successful transfers have completed around 30 college credits and have completed fundamental English and math with a B average, so around a 3.0. So let's talk about some helpful hints. So most applications will open in early August, but now is a great time to go ahead and get started. You can do your research on schools, and there's a lot of schools that are offering online tours and informational sessions. University of Maryland, actually, we are offering online tours and informational sessions right now, so definitely make sure that you're looking at the different schools and seeing if they're offering any of these opportunities. You should have a list of schools and start narrowing them down. Really start narrowing down the schools you really want to apply to and that have all the things that you're interested in and any major you might be interested in. You can start with test prep over the summer, and it's important to start thinking about those letters of recommendation as well. Don't be afraid to ask for help on essays. Make sure, again, that it's in your own voice and you aren't over-editing. Your first draft of your essay is not your final draft, so definitely have at least 1 to 2 people proofread that essay before you submit it. For letters of recommendation, it's important that you give the people time to write these letters of recommendation. This is someone advocating for you and the last thing you want is them feeling rushed or giving off the impression that you procrastinated. And it's always a nice gesture to provide a thank you note via email or hand copy to the person that writes your recommendation letter after it's submitted, because it does take a lot of time to sit down and write those, especially for your counselors. They're writing for so many different students. So definitely just make sure that you show them that you're appreciative of them writing that and submitting it for you. All right, well, looks like we covered everything in today's presentation. Thank you so much for joining me. I hope you enjoyed College Access Central. Make sure you check back daily to see any updates that we have. We'll be posting things every single day. Right here is all of my contact information. Again, my name is Elena Jackson. You can visit our website at admissions.umd.edu, email us at applymaryland@umd.edu, or call us at 301-314-TERP. Thank you and have a great day.